Hey everybody, I know, gone for 10 years, I'm working on it, but I'm back and currently playing Blue Protocol. It just released today and I've been playing a lot with my friends. So I think starting out with Blue Protocol, I'm going to start out with a couple day guides, eventually turn it into a week guide. I am still playing Weathering Waves, expect to see some event guides coming up in the future. So just take it like I took a break for one patch. So let's go ahead and break down what you should probably be focusing on the first day. And most of this information I got from Maxrow, which I'll leave a link down in the comment. But this is just going to be a quick video guide so that way you guys can quickly do all the things that I did today, as well as give you a few extra tips to help make this process a bit smoother. So the very first thing that you want to do is do the main story quest. Now you're going to be able to see what that is by seeing this little red icon. This is going to be the main story quest and you want to continue it until eventually you get to the point to where it's going to be time gated and it's going to tell you that the next part starts the next day. Outside of that, you're also going to have a bunch of side quests. Now that's going to probably be like talent training, a few other things about like world quests and whatnot. Now this is going to give you quite a bit of experience and you're going to need that so that way you can further progress your character. So that's the very first thing that you generally want to focus on starting out the game. And as you level up, I believe once you reach level 10 or so, you're going to be able to join a guild. Now you can simply just press the escape icon, click on the guild icon right here. Right here, you're going to have the option to search for a guild. Now I'm currently in the guild Fate. If you guys want to join our guild, feel free. Or let me know down in the comments that you want to try to join and I can try to get you guys in. And while you're doing that, you should get to a point to where you're able to eventually level up your skills. You want to try to go ahead and max out all of your skills because this is going to be the main way that your character does damage. Now, depending on your character, there's going to be certain skills that you want. For me, I'm going with the marksman. So I went with these 6 skills as my main skills. And I wanted to make sure that I got all of them to level 8. Now right now, all this is going to cost you is just some money on your account, which is not too bad. Generally, as long as you're doing everything in the game, you should have enough money to easily level up all your skills and get other things with your money. As we progress further in the game, we're going to start needing things like books as well as money to buy things in the auction house. So you don't want to just be spending it on anything. After that, we want to pretty much focus on our talents. Now we want to basically, starting out, you're probably only going to be able to get 14 talents, but once you finish the talent training for the day, you should have enough points to get 16 points. And you want to go ahead and use all those 16 points to make your character as strong as possible. One thing to note, depending on the class, you're going to need arcane seals. Generally, DPSs are going to need attack, and the other classes are going to need other seals. So make sure that you're checking your inventory for these boxes and you're selecting the proper seals. Okay, now I want to go ahead and just quickly talk about a couple things that is going to help you while you try to level up your character. So first off, when starting the game, you're going to get mail. In this mail, you're going to get a mount, which is going to be very helpful for you to get around. So make sure that you collect your mail when starting the game, and then you go over here to where it says mount image, and you select the mount. As you play, you're going to have other options to where you can get other mounts, but this is at least nice to get around at the start of the game. Also, as you progress, you're eventually going to be directed over here. You'll see that message saying that they want you to use the float ability, and you might have some issues trying to figure out how to do that. What you need to do is go talk to this flower and you need to resonate with it. Once you resonate with it, it's going to give you an option to where you're going to be able to get the float ability. All you got to do is just put it down on your bar, and then you can go back to the wind tunnel, jump up and press Q, and you're going to be able to float in the air. Then you're just going to fly to the location that it's going to direct you at. So now let's go ahead and talk about the main thing that you're going to be doing to try to make your character stronger. So let's go ahead and take a look at my profile. As you see, I was able to get my ability score to 3600. This puts me in a good spot because what you're mainly going to be doing is doing the goblin lair to try to get as many purple pieces of gear that you can. That way you can eventually get all purple gears on your character. If we look at the hard mode, you'll see that I need an ability score of 3880. Tomorrow, I'm going to be able to reach a higher level, so me being at 3600 already, I'm going to easily be able to make it to this mode. And I'm going to be able to get better rewards because I'm going to be able to get legendary gear instead of, as you see on the normal mode, purple gear. Now, starting out, you're not going to really have much, and even if you do that dungeon that I talked about, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get all of these purple gears. So how are we able to get that? Let me go ahead and break that down. Doing the normal mode Goblin Lair, we're going to have a first time clear reward to where we're going to be guaranteed one purple item, and they're generally going to either be the gauntlets or the earrings, but we do have a low chance to get a weapon. Pretty much our main goal for today is to try to get all purple gears, but at the very least you want to try to do this dungeon at least 2 times, so that way you can try to get the purple gears for this dungeon. But if you do decide to go the extra mile, you can come over to this location right here. Here you'll be able to talk to Maxim, and you'll be able to dismantle pieces of gear. So if we dismantle this piece of gear right here, we'll see that we get a few shards. Now, the nice thing about this game is that anything that you put into gear, so if you end up finding better gear along the way, and you actually reforge it to make it stronger, you're going to get those reforged stones back. And where you spend those shards is over here, next to this guy, Harvey, and you do the level 40 gear exchange. Now you have daily items that you can buy, so the pieces of gear that you're not able to get, you can buy them from this guy using the shards. They're going to cost 20 shards. So by doing that dungeon over and over again, dismantling the gear that you don't need, you get these shards and you can buy the other purples that you don't need. Another way that you can get these shards is by clicking on the season hub right here. Then if we go all the way down to the honor coins, it'll take us to the colorful store to where we can spend our weekly honor coins. Here you'll notice we're able to buy these shards, and since we have a weekly limit of 10,000, it's pretty good to just go ahead and spend your shards. It's pretty good just to go ahead and spend your tickets on these ally shards. That way you can make your character as strong as possible, as quickly as possible. But if you do have some time, you can keep grinding the first dungeon. And then the second way how we're going to increase our gear score is by reforging the items. Each of these items have a perfection limit to where this item can reach a maximum of 80. We can add reforged stones and we're able to change this stat. Hopefully it goes into a stat that's good for your class, to where my class specifically wants haste and mastery. Sadly, this one's versatility, but we're just trying to get a few reforged stones on the weapon just to slightly elevate our gear score. But if you happen to get a gold item by getting a vein to drop in the normal dungeon, which does have a low drop chance, but if it does happen, you're guaranteed to get a gold item if you clear that mode. This is the one that you generally want to go ahead and just try to get to perfection. And then once you have some excess reforged stones, you can try to make this gear a little better. And with that, that's mainly what you're trying to focus on today, outside of a few optionals, which I'll discuss. So to quickly go through it, we want to make sure that we do our main quest. Then we want to do all of our side quests. Next, we want to join a guild. Then we want to upgrade our skills to level 8. Then use 16 talent points. And then finally, upgrade our gear. So hopefully you can get your ability score as close as you can to 3,800, being ready for the next day. So now let's quickly talk about some optional content that you can do in the game if you want to try to go that extra mile. So I already mentioned how you want to try to spam the normal dungeon as much as you can, so that way you can get excess purple items to eventually get enough shards to get purple items in all of your gear slots. An alternative to this is you can hunt world bosses. But as I mentioned in my previous video talking about the game, these drops are random. So you might spend a long time fighting a world boss and end up getting a piece of gear for a different class. So for me, unless you're trying to go for some of those achievements, or farm a Pacific boss, because they can drop some pretty good rewards, which we'll talk about in a later video, there's not much point to do that. The next optional thing that you can do are life skills. Now this is something that you will eventually have to do, because this is going to be something that is going to greatly increase the power of your character. But if we look here, you'll see that I have 400 focus. Now, as long as this is not max, I can spend this any day, but I'm going to need to use this focus to get certain materials. So I can wait a couple days before I start focusing on life skills, because I can hold that focus. But I believe you can only hold this up to 4 days, so it is something that you're going to eventually want to do. And the other optional thing that you can do is make an alt character. As I mentioned earlier, we have those life skills, so where you're going to get some focus energy every day. When you have an alt character on your account, they're able to get focus energy too. And eventually you're going to get to the point to where you're able to make a house for your alt character. And you can use this alt character to send your main character some items. Now, this is not something that you have to do, but it is a way to help power up your main character. So it is something that I would recommend trying to create on the first day and try to basically just spend your alt character's energy just to help your main character out. But this is more of a min-max strategy and is something that you don't have to do if you don't really want to. And the last things that I want to mention are the daily activities that you want to make sure that you do. The first one being the unstable goblin lair. You'll see the unstable goblin reward, to where it's going to give you a lot of those mats that I talked about for your gear. You want to make sure that you do your 2 attempts every day. This is going to pretty much mimic the hardest mode that you can get to, but it's going to be an easy version of the boss mechanic, so even if you are with a bunch of random people, it should be very easy to clear. So make sure that you do that. Next is we have the store. Ideally, the mystery store. Now, this is something that you're going to be able to buy daily, and some of these things are pretty good. You'll notice right here are a few of the really rare items that I ended up buying that had a daily limit. These reforged stones are very good. The skill books are very good in this exquisite material, especially if you're going to get like really powerful battle images later on. And then this basic chest that just gives some pretty nice items. But this does use your limited currency on the account, so you want to make sure not to go too crazy and spend all of your stuff, just in case if you want to use that on other things later on. Your other daily thing is your season pass activity. As you're doing things throughout the day, you're going to reach certain sections to where you're going to be able to get massive experience for your character, which is going to greatly boost your character's level. So make sure that you're coming to this season pass as you're doing things throughout the day, so that way you can greatly increase its level. Then we do want to eventually look at that monster hunt, to where you're going to have elite bosses, to where you notice right here we have 2 keys, which we can hold a total of 6 keys, so you don't necessarily have to do this every day, but you don't want to end a day with 6 keys since you can't get any more. And some of these drop some pretty good materials, so do make sure that you're spending these keys on some elite before you reach a grand total of 6 keys. And this is going to be the same for boss monsters, because they're also going to drop rare rewards. Whereas for me, as a marksman, I'm going to want this specific thing, so I'm trying to use all my keys on this, and I'm trying to save up to 6 keys and focus on fighting this boss to hopefully get that battle image. And lastly, the life focus skill, like I said, doesn't have to be done daily, but you want to just make sure that you don't let it get maxed out, so I wanted to mention it in this section. And the last optional thing that I want to mention is essentially the gacha system. So if we go down here to the Imagine Research, we'll get to go talk to Mr. Mason over here, and that is where we're at the Will Wish. Now, so here's where you're able to get some pretty powerful battle images, but especially if you're trying to get the human ones. Now, for me, I want to probably get at least one of these on my account, since this is something that can res the whole party, to where there are some mechanics that are pretty hard, especially as we get later throughout the game. So just having this just in case is not a bad idea. For the other ones, they're generally good for classes that are going to support the group. If they have one of these things, it's going to really help the party clear certain pieces of content. But again, this is where you're going to have to probably put at least $100 or so in the game to guarantee you get one of these things, which for some, that may be a deal breaker. And I don't think you have to get this, but it is something that I wanted to make you aware of. And simply, this pretty much works as any other gacha, to where this one, you're able to select this weekly. So if you want to get multiple copies of this thing, you can get this over a few weeks, guarantee that you get the one that you want. I don't really recommend that. I recommend just getting 1 copy and calling it a day. But how it works is every 20 pulls, you're going to get a regular yellow gacha. So like that spider boss I showed. So you're going to get a regular yellow. You're going to get a regular yellow battle. You're going to get a regular yellow battle image. So like that spider boss I showed, that's one way to get it. You have a random chance to probably get it. And Then after you roll 80 times, you're guaranteed to get the selected item. And if you try to keep going, it's going to be a random human battle image, which I recommend not doing. But with that, that should be everything that you need to know for day 1 starting out with Blue Protocol. If there's anything that you didn't really quite fully understand, let me know and I'll try to make it more clearer in day 2. But with that, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If so, I would greatly appreciate a like so that way we can spread more on YouTube. But other than that, I'll talk with you guys later.